Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast. It's a show filled with family history research strategies and techniques, news and entertainment, and inspiration. And I'm your host, Lisa Louise Cooke. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 228. Oh, I've had so much fun putting this episode together for you. I always record the introduction last because I have to kind of see what I'm going to put in there. And I've got a wonderful mix of different stories and ideas and listeners to share with you on today's show. And of course, my special guest in this episode is Christa Cowen, the Barefoot Genealogist from Ancestry.com. We had a lot of fun meeting up at RootsTech 2019 and having a conversation that I can bring to you today on the show. It's been a busy spring already. I am just back from Sacramento, California. Did a big root cellar seminar out there, which was fantastic. Wow, a big seminar. Just over 200 people attend their yearly seminar. So that was a wonderful time. And just around tonight I'm heading to Denton, right around the corner, basically from where I live, Denton, Texas. I'll be doing a presentation there this evening. And then next up, I think, we'll be coming out to Ohio. So I'm looking forward to seeing lots of you in Mason, Ohio at the upcoming Ohio Genealogical Society Conference. There is a bit of news. One of the things I did this last week was I sat in on a special call with the folks over at Ancestry.com, and they were wanting to introduce some of the new features that are coming out. And you may already see these in your dashboard at Ancestry. 2 new features are just now coming out. One of them is the Revamped user profile. And I have to say, I think this is very welcome because it was time to refresh and really update that user profile. And they've really had this on their minds too. And what they've done is a bit of investigation into what facilitates communication between users, whether it's getting somebody to share information because you connected on a family tree or through your DNA matches, whatever it is you're doing on the site. You know, they do have a messaging system, but if you're like me, and we all experience this, people don't respond, right? And they did a little bit of looking into that and some research, and they discovered that there's a lot that can be done on a user profile to really facilitate that. One of the main things is just having a photo. Now, it could be your photo. If you don't want to have a picture of your face, you could have some other image, but something that represents you or somehow communicates who you are. Having just kind of the blank, generic user image, that's kind of a turnoff, I guess, even subconsciously. So adding your own photograph, whether it's your face or maybe you use a photograph of an ancestor, that just does a lot to kind of personalize when somebody goes to your profile page. And there are other things that you can add as well. So I encourage you to take a look at the revamped user profile page that you have on Ancestry.com and take advantage, look through the fields that they offer you. Because I think when you go through and try to add as much of the information or imagery that they're prompting you for, you're going to find that you're going to get better results. Wouldn't that be nice if somebody responded to your message? And that brings us to the second item that they have recently updated, and that is the messaging system itself. Now, of course, they've had a messaging system, a way to, within the Ancestry website, contact other users. But that, again, was really kind of hankering for some new features, and they have added them. Now, if you don't see the new messaging system, you're looking at it going, well, this all looks the same to me. Don't worry. One of the things they do is they roll it out to people kind of in waves so they don't overload the system. But the other thing is, if you're somebody who uses that folders feature that's in the current messaging system, you're going to be on the list for the delay. And the reason for that is they're trying to come up with a fix that can deal with or move your messages so you don't lose all that organization that you've been doing over the last couple of years. So it's probably going to, this is mid-April. It's going to take them another 6 to 8 weeks probably to roll out the fix on how they're going to migrate all of the information that's in your folders. So just be patient, know that it's on its way. But there again, I think having kind of new, fresh, updated communication tools and ways to communicate who you are is going to go a long way to helping you be more successful in connecting with other people on Ancestry, if that's something that you want to do. So that's kind of the latest news. Now we're going to have a little different mailbox segment, I think, on this episode, because one of the cool things that happens when I get to go in person to conferences and seminars is I get to talk to you. And that's what we're going to do in this mailbox segment. You're going to hear the voices of other Genealogy Gems listeners. I love it. Here it comes.
From my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad, but more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
All right, here we are in the mailbox, and you're here too. Not just your emails and your messages, but we're going to hear voices today. In fact, 2 of them. And it's funny because the first one is from Trisha, and I met her at RootsTech. She stopped by the booth, and we had kind of a setup for conducting interviews. We did interviews every day with different genealogy experts and kind of had a live audience to do that. But when we weren't doing that, I was just welcoming my listeners to come on in, sit down, take a load off, and tell me what's on their mind. And that's exactly what Trisha did.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Trisha. So you walked up and you said, I love you.
I do.
So, of course, I said, I loved you back.
I do.
But we're going to get our picture taken.
Yeah,
Hi.
we can our picture taken. Thank you.
You've been a listener for a couple of years now.
For about 3 years, yes.
And you said something about, I was the first presenter you'd seen.
Yes, I went to my very first conference in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Right.
And you were the presenter on Google.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my very first conference. I had just gotten into doing research outside of my computer.
Right.
And I thought I needed to learn something. So I went to that one.
That is so awesome. Now, you look like you're on the younger side of the crowd here.
I'm in my early 40s.
Oh,
I'll be
wow.
42 in August.
Awesome. And so you had been working on your own computer. You'd been doing the online stuff.
Right.
And then you branched out. What finally made you kind of just go, I need to get out of this cocoon of online?
It was pretty much that I wasn't finding any new information.
Okay.
I was just looking at the same records over and over again online.
Yeah.
And I needed to find more information to know where my family was from. And so I went to your conference and learned about Google and how to search and Google Earth. And that really helped.
Awesome. Well,
and I started listening to your podcast.
So you did. Okay. So what do you think of the show? What do you enjoy most on it?
I love your guest. I love your mailbox spot where you get mail from your listeners.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times those are things that I'm thinking, but I say, she's not going to read my email. But she actually did on a show one time. And I was super excited. I screamed at work because I was listening to it in my office. It was super exciting.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love having the interviews with the other experts and guests and things. I've been doing a couple of them and that's what we're doing here at lunchtime, which is great. So there'll be some new ones. Did you get a chance to hear any of the story segments? That was a total departure. What did you think?
I loved it.
Okay.
I remember the one about the lady who was looking for her family, her and her sister.
Yeah.
It, didn't have, a great ending at it because her mom was in a sanitarium or something like that. Yeah. But that happens in everyday life. I mean, we all deal with things like that. My grandmother was put away for tuberculosis.
Oh, wow.
And back then there wasn't a cure and they just put you in a hospital. But luckily she was on the tail end of it and actually was one of the first recipients of the drug that they now use to treat tuberculosis.
Oh, fantastic.
But yeah, she was in there for 7 years.
Wow.
Just sitting.
And it was just a whole different time frame, a whole different way of the way families were
back in the 50s.
With. Yeah. And those are difficult records to get into.
Yeah, they are. And she was away from her family. We lived in Northeast Arkansas, and the sanitarium was in Central Arkansas. And it's not like traveling today where you can just hop in a car and go 2 hours to Little Rock. So it was, my mother was 4 years old at the time. So it was a lot going on.
Wow.
So here at RootsTech, what's been your favorite thing so far?
This, meeting you,
Me too.
is number one. I got to go over to the relative race booth, which I learned about from your podcast, and I'm now addicted to the show. And of course, all of the wonderful classes that I've been able to take. My focus is taking classes on writing because I want to, write my story. Because you say nobody can tell your story like you.
That's so true.
So that's my focus right now.
And it's easy to put our story second and third and fourth, isn't it? I mean, so what's for you helped you kind of say, I've got to raise this up and make it a higher priority?
Honestly, my husband, he saw all the research that I was doing and all the information that I was collecting. Right. And he asked me, he said, well, what are you going to do with it? You have all these piles of stuff. You have your computer and your external hard drive and all of these information on your computer. What are you going to do with it? And I said, I don't know. I'll just box it up and give it to Wesley. I don't know. That's my son. And he was like, no, you need to write these stories down. You have stories that people want to hear. And so he prompted me to do my blog, Journey Through the Generations.
Yes. And you said that to me. I remember.
Did, yes. So that got me to writing, and that gave me confidence that I can actually write and people will read it other than my mother.
Right.
So that's really nice.
Although it's nice when Mom reads, too.
It is. It really is.
So are you writing up the stories of the families that you found in your family history, or are you also writing your own personal story?
My blog is
Which,
about...
of course, is your personal story, isn't it?
My blog is mainly about my journey in researching the, centers I go to, the conventions I go to, the records that I find, and I actually write in a journal my personal stories that I want to publish someday.
Because you'll have those too.
Yeah.
So will I see you in class?
Yes.
Yes. Now you've seen the Google class, but the video magic, which is again telling your story, is going to be brand new.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited. I am so glad you stopped by.
I'm so excited.
And now it's official. You've been on the show.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm glad you had
just
time to take to visit with me. You just don't understand all of the help that you have given me and your team has given me, and you guys have given me confidence to continue to write and to know that my story, although it's important to me and my family, it's also important for other people and giving them motivation and inspiration as well. And you do magical things. Aww. And I do love you.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you so much, Trisha.
Thanks.
That was so much fun meeting up with Trisha at RootsTech. And this got me thinking, I wondered if I had other audio files. A lot of times if I don't have a podcasting set up at a booth, I'll have my phone, of course, and I use Evernote, so I will very quickly pull up a note and say, hey, can I record our conversation? And I'll make an audio note. And I found one. Now, this one comes from the National Genealogical Society Conference from a couple of years ago. And I don't even know if I could tell you exactly how long ago it was. But Betty stopped by. And I just love when people come by and they tell me, hey, I read something in your book, or I sat in on one of your classes, and the heavens opened. Something happened. I found something that I never expected, or maybe had almost given up hope on. And that was a story that Betty wanted to stop by and share. Now, just keep in mind, the audio in this one isn't quite as good. There's a bit of noise because it was kind of crazy right then in the exhibit hall, but it quickly quiets down so that you can really hear Betty's story of how she followed one of my tips, which is to turn to Google Books if you're having a hard time finding information. And that's exactly what she did. She turned to Google Books, which led her to an awareness of a tremendous record collection that she could then track down in another repository.
I was stuck on my Duncan McKenzie ancestry. So I put his name in Google Books because I've heard about, somebody had told me when you're stuck, that's what you do.
Yes.
So I put his name in Google Books. Up popped this history of Mississippi. It was sort of a specific history. And it said Duncan McKenzie had written a letter to his brother-in-law in North Carolina from Covington County, Mississippi. And, of course, I already had my tax records and my census records that placed them in Covington County. And this was, I guess, in the 1840s, the time period. So I thought, well, this just couldn't be him. I mean, why would any of my relatives be in a book? So finally, weeks later, it occurred to me to go back and look at the footnotes. And I found that the letters could be found at the Duncan McLaurin papers at Duke University.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't even think to get to even borrow the microfilm. I didn't even think that. I told my husband, next time you go east for work, because he travels in his work, we need to go by Duke University.
Right.
So I set up a time and I went, and it was my great-great-grandfather wrote those letters. I've transcribed 130 letters from that
whole
set. They let me scan it all, and I've been back again to scan the rest of the legal papers and so forth. And every once in a while I come across this little tidbit, like I have a Catherine Mackenzie ancestor in Scotland, and I got this from a will of her brother who was in North Carolina as well. So, and that added my Barbara McLaurin family, the McLaurins of Laurel Hill, and
so an online Google search into Google Books, not only can you find something, but then it led you to the offline stuff.
Right.
That's fantastic.
It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much for telling me about that. That's really cool.
I mean, it just changed my life.
Yeah.
Because I spent all my time on these letters.
What a treasure.
It's distracted me from other lines of my family. But anyway.
Oh, thank you, Betty.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Now, you don't have to see me at a live conference or a seminar, although I'd love it if you do, to be able to talk to me. You can, of course, call our voicemail line at 925-272-4021. Don't be shy. Call me up. Tell me what you love about the show, what you'd like to hear. And how about this? If you have picked up a tip or strategy, whether it's from the podcast, videos on our YouTube channel, something I posted on my Instagram account, or maybe something that you read in one of my books or saw in one of the premium videos, pick up the phone, give us a call. I love hearing your triumphs, as I know everybody else does, because it's so inspiring. It gives us all hope, and we can all do our genealogy happy dance with you, okay? So you can call the voicemail line, 925-272-4021, and when you do that, you give us permission to play it here on the show. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad, but more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
As I travel the world talking about genealogy, folks are always stopping me and asking for my advice on organizing and securing their family history research. And my standard answer is plant your family tree in your own backyard and share branches online. Planting your tree in your own backyard, it means keeping one master family tree in a software file right there on your own computer. That gives you ownership, control of privacy and security, and one central place to organize everything that you learn about your family. And of course, my software of choice and the one that I use is RootsMagic. I find that its tree building tools are second to none. And with RootsMagic Web Hints, you can see what record hints are available on Family Search, Find My Past, and My Heritage. And now you have the ability to synchronize your RootsMagic database with your Ancestry tree and get those Ancestry.com web hints right there inside of RootsMagic. These are features that are really critical and they're exclusive to RootsMagic. So plant your tree today in RootsMagic and watch it grow. Get started at rootsmagic.com. One of the great things about being a speaker at RootsTech, really the biggest genealogy conference in the world, is the fact that I get to not only meet so many of you, as you just heard in the mailbox segment, but I also get together with my colleagues in the industry to talk about what their companies are up to, what the innovations are that they're creating, and what they see coming in the future, and just a little bit about their own personal genealogy journey. And that's exactly what I did at RootsTech 2019. One of my special guests was Krista Cowen from Ancestry, and she's joining us here in just a moment. Krista's been doing genealogy since she was a child, and she's been employed at Ancestry.com since 2004. And around Ancestry, she is known as the Barefoot Genealogist, and you may have caught one of her videos over at YouTube. Ancestry was very busy at RootsTech this last year and made several new announcements. So in this conversation that you're about to hear, I'm going to talk with Krista a bit about her own genealogy journey and some of those new features that were announced at RootsTech 2019. Good morning, Krista Cowen. It is so good to see you here at RootsTech. How are you holding up?
I'm doing well, Lisa. Thanks for asking.
And it's day 2, so we don't really have anything to complain about, but I already feel like it's been a marathon, right?
It has, absolutely.
Well, I'm so happy to have a couple minutes to get a chance to talk with you, have you on the show. Let's talk about first the Barefoot Genealogist YouTube channel, because you've been doing that for a long time. So I have to ask you, if you could spend an entire episode on your one and favorite topic, if maybe you've already done it, but what would it be if it could just be indulging Krista Cowen's desire to talk about a particular subject in genealogy?
That is a great question. You know, I love teaching new people how to get started. I mean, I love evidence analysis and, you know, all the really heavy things in genealogy as well. But I love helping new people get excited. That first record, that first discovery really is an impact, and it really draws them into this.
And that experience has changed a lot since we started. I mean, I was just telling your publicist, I've been doing the podcast this week for 12 years. It's been 12 years. I can't believe it's been this long. And 12 years ago, the entrance into genealogy was very different. And now they sign on, they put themselves in the tree, and it starts building. So talk about that a little bit. What's the beginner's experience today?
On Ancestry, you just put in your name, what you know about yourself, your parents, and your grandparents, if you know your grandparents, and immediately Ancestry goes to work searching our 20 billion records to see if we can find something that matches the information you've given us. And so that very first discovery often can happen within just a few minutes.
Yeah, it really does. And of course, there's always the genealogical verification, right? I mean, so there's the process of, you guys provide the hints, which is, I just think, a tremendous boon. It really triggers the new user to know what to look for. But there's still the old brain, isn't there, that we have to analyze it and make that determination.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you coach, like on your YouTube channel? Because I know you get lots of great feedback from your viewers. How do you encourage them in terms of their own analysis of what they're seeing on the website?
The records that we provide, the hints that we provide are just hints. And so you do have to engage your brain, right? As much as some of us like to just click through leaves at 2 o'clock in the morning, you do have to engage your brain and look at some of those records and make some determinations. Just because somebody has the same name in the same time at the same place doesn't mean they're the same person. And sometimes that's something that's a little difficult for new people to wrap their head around. In today's world, our name is such a crucial part of our identity, and how we spell our name is such a crucial part of our identity. But that hasn't always been the case. People spelled their names various ways. People had various nicknames throughout their lives. And so when we look at records, we have to take into account that name and the spelling of the name haven't always been consistent through time.
That's really true. It's that historical perspective on, what people were thinking and doing back then when the records actually got created, right? So what's the number one question that you're getting asked, specifically also about using Ancestry's product?
One of the questions we get asked a lot has to do with how to find the records, because we do hint you records, but we only hint a portion of the records, and it's usually just some of the base records, census records, birth, marriage, and death records. But if you really want the story, you need to start searching the records, and sometimes that's something that is a little overwhelming to people when you're talking about 20 billion records.
Right.
And so learning some of those little search tips and tricks, and knowing that there are military records and passenger lists and naturalization records and newspapers with really rich stories, just knowing that those things even exist and to go look for them isn't something that always occurs to the new person. So it's something that I'm always trying to educate people about.
And I imagine there are new people listening right now who are thinking,
Oh, I thought it was looking at all of the records. So the hints are a starting point. It pushes you forward. But do you have records that are actually unindexed?
We do.
Okay, so browsable?
Yes, so we have records that only about the top 10% of our most popular databases are provided as hints. Then you have all the searchable records. And then, like you said, there is another subset of records where we've digitized the images, but we haven't yet indexed them. So my favorite resource on the entire Ancestry website is our card catalog, because you can go in and you can search it by place, and you can search it by record type, and you can see what records even exist.
And I'm always shocked how few people use the card catalog, and yet it's critical, right? There's nothing worse than spending 3 hours in the middle of the night and realizing I'm searching for something that isn't there.
Right. Yeah.
So, you obviously, how long have you been doing genealogy?
I have been doing genealogy since I was a child.
Okay.
I come from parents who are very active in family history. As a matter of fact, they're here with me this week at RootsTech speaking with me. And so it's been a passion of mine for my whole life. I have been, however, employed by Ancestry for the past 15 years. I just celebrated my 15-year anniversary.
Excellent. Oh, that's a wonderful anniversary. So I'm in the same club with you, starting when I was 8 years old, and it's amazing. It never gets old, never gets dull. Ancestry DNA obviously has taken a big role in the company, in the messaging. I was looking at the Instagram account. That is the only thing you will see on the Instagram account is Ancestry DNA versus talking about genealogy, records and things. So if you had a chance, just personally, with as little time as you have to do genealogy research, I'm sure, just for yourself, just in that quiet time. So you got 2 hours, you've got a great-great-great-grandfather you're trying to find, and you have to decide, are you going to spend your time with the genealogical records, or are you going to spend the time, as in birth, marriage, death, census, deeds, all that kind of stuff, or are you going to spend the time in the analysis of your DNA search results? How would you spend your time? And mostly to get the most bang for your buck, that you want to say at the end of that 2 hours, I've got all this to show for it, and I've filled in the story. What would you do?
So Ancestry DNA has, like you said, changed the face of family history research. It's a way to accelerate your research. When I do have time, and I do this every Sunday night, my dad and I get on the phone, and we spend 3 to 4 hours together looking through our DNA matches. But this week, Ancestry just announced a new tool in your DNA toolkit, which is called Throughline. And basically what that does is it clusters your DNA matches around a single ancestor. Right. So if I was looking for that third great-grandfather, I would go to Throughline first, so I can see all of the DNA matches or all of the genetic evidence that connects me to him, and then I would explore the trees of those matches to see what records they had already found to help prove that he really is my third great-grandfather.
So do you feel like that is the more efficient way to get to those records versus working from your tree and then going for the search for those records to fill in?
I think that is the starting point, especially for new people, because sometimes the records, as you know, can get a little bit overwhelming to new people. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't know what they're looking for. But when we have a cousin who's already put together the tree and already attached the evidence, all we have to do is go in and evaluate it for ourselves and then start to make those conclusions.
So that was a big announcement that they did with the Throughline. What else is coming down the pipeline at Ancestry?
So the other 2 announcements we made this week, we do have a new and improved DNA match list. And the thing that I'm most excited about with that is we have given our users 24 different colors to group their matches. So I've already spent a lot of time in the last few days. I've grouped my matches around my 8 great-grandparents. So I've used 8 base colors. And then I'm using some of those other colors for things like mysteries or people I haven't figured out yet, or labeling them in different ways. And I'm still kind of figuring out what my ultimate system's going to be. The second thing we announced this week is the new tagging system in our tree. It's called My Tree Tags, and it allows you to put in reference tags, research tags, DNA tags. So if I've got a military ancestor or an immigrant ancestor, I can tag them. If I've proven a connection through DNA, I can tag that. Lots of different tags that we've given people, plus they have custom tags. They can create their own tagging system. And the cool thing about that is that not only does it put that tag in your tree for your own reference, for the information of the people who are looking at your tree, but you can also then filter your tree down to this list of, for example, people I'm actively researching, so that when I sit down in those few minutes that I have, I don't have to surf around my tree trying to figure out where I was last time or what I want to work on. I just filter my list to people I'm actively researching, pick one of those people, and get to work.
It's a tremendous boost, I think, to the whole process, right? To just really get your hands on it and track your progress. So that launched this week.
Yep.
How about the rollout? Is it just a rollout? Everybody's going to see that? They've already got it, or it's on the way?
So through lines, everyone has. If you are eligible for through lines, which means you have to have taken a DNA test, you have to have a tree, and you have to have the two connected. So if you're eligible for through lines, it is immediately available. The My Tree tags and the new and improved DNA match list are still in beta. And so if you click on the extras menu on Ancestry, you can opt into that beta if you want to participate. And we would love people to use it and get feedback so that we can improve it before the official launch.
And how can they do that? How can they get back to you and either give you feedback on something that's not working, or maybe say, oh my gosh, what if you did this?
Yeah. So at the bottom of every page of one of those tools is a little feedback link. They can click that, walks them through a quick survey, and then gives them some free-form text. Or, of course, they can always come to our Facebook page on the Ancestry Facebook page and leave feedback there as well.
So you're already planning next year's launches?
Of course
they
we
already
are.
know what the product. It's amazing, the onslaught of the new happenings, and yet it's kind of exciting that it all happens at one time, where everybody can kind of jump in together.
It makes me a little nervous that I'm at this conference working and teaching, and I can't go play with my new tools.
And I'm curious, tell us just a little bit about what your role specifically is in Ancestry. And do you get a chance to sit in on some of the product development meetings and say, here's where I think it needs to go? What is it that you do as head genealogist?
Yeah, so most people do know me as the Barefoot Genealogist because of the YouTube show, but I am the corporate genealogist. And so I'm really integrated with the product management teams. And my role is to be the voice of the customer to our product teams. And so I sit in from ideation all the way through to product launch on all of those meetings and help kind of guide that with the eye of a genealogist who is a lot more seasoned in this, but also because I'm so integrated because of these conferences and because of my YouTube videos with a lot of our new customers, I can bring their perspective to the table as well.
Well, thank you for bringing your perspective to the show today. It was so nice to have a chance to sit down and talk with you, and have a great rest of RootsTech.
You too.
You'll be busy.
Our sponsor for this episode is MyHeritage. They have over 70 million members worldwide. Now, if you're serious about making connections in the country where your ancestors once lived, hands down, MyHeritage is the place that you want to be. I uploaded my family tree hoping for a breakthrough in my German family line, and that breakthrough happened really quickly. I received a message from a distant cousin in Germany, and that was my first international cousin contact. And MyHeritage has a unique and powerful search system. It's called Record Matches. Now, this constantly calls over 8 billion historical records for your family. It's also the only family history interface out there using semantic analysis to search newspaper articles, books, and other free text documents. So find out what MyHeritage can do to help you grow your family tree. Visit myheritage.com. It's free to get started, so there's really no reason to wait, and there are billions of reasons to try it out. Visit myheritage.com. If you're a Genealogy Gems Premium member, then you met author Joy Neighbors in Premium Podcast episode 169. Joy's a delightful national speaker, author, freelance writer, and an avowed Tombstone Tourist. Joy writes the weekly cemetery culture blog called A Grave Interest, which you can find at agraveinterest.blogspot.com. And in her book, The Family Tree Cemetery Field Guide, she focuses on how to locate cemetery records, what to do when you get to the cemetery, and how to understand the silent language of the stones. She also shares a few stunning family secrets along the way. In that premium podcast episode, number 169, Joy and I discussed cemetery research strategies that every genealogist can use to uncover family history. Turn to the show notes for this episode, number 228, for more information on how to get your copy of Joy's book, which, of course, we so appreciate when you use our links because it helps support this free podcast. And if you want to become a Genealogy Gems Premium member to hear more of Joy's strategies, you'll also find a link to learn more about how to become a member. We'd love to have you join us here as a Genealogy Gems Premium member. Well, in this gem, I've invited Joy to share 3 very intriguing and very surprising discoveries that she's made while searching cemeteries.
We think of cemeteries as quiet, tranquil places. As a Tombstone Tourist, I've spent years in cemeteries searching for genealogy clues, exquisite artwork, stunning vistas, and that perfect photograph. A trip to the graveyard is never boring. I've come back with tales of beauty, delight, and terror. Here are just 3 shocking discoveries I've made while searching in cemeteries. The abandoned crypts. There's a cemetery in Kentucky that holds a baffling find. 3 19th century mausoleums that have disappeared right in the middle of the grounds. On a humid July day, I stepped inside a grove of trees to escape the searing heat. Inside that cool dimness stood 3 stately mausoleums, each with a facade protruding from a hill now enveloped in trees, vines, and shrubs. This thicket had been growing untamed for years. The mausoleums stood side by side. The first was a small brick crypt with the surname above the entry, along with a date, 1895. But the tomb had been bricked up for so long, trees grew on top, obscuring its existence. The middle mausoleum was built from pressed concrete, with niches and arches along the wall. Again, the doorway and windows were bricked shut against the onslaught of trees and ropey vines that brushed and clung to its surface. The third mausoleum was constructed of plainer concrete, set off in a corner. No names or dates were visible, but trees blocked any approach. It was visible only through a tangle of vines and foliage. Who had these monuments been for? Why had they been abandoned? Had the bodies been moved when family members relocated? Or were they simply forgotten? Perhaps no one left any payment for special care in perpetuity. Apparently, what has been lost and forgotten shall remain so. The grave in the middle of the road. Having grown up in Indiana, I can assure you that Hoosiers are a practical lot. But there's one roadside attraction that will cause the most stoic of residents to stop and ponder the audacity and the fortitude it took to keep a grave in the middle of the road for close to 200 years. The story began in 1808 when Nancy Curlin married William Barnett, the great-great-great-grandson of Pocahontas and John Rolfe. They settled near what would become Amity, Indiana, to raise their family. Nancy died on December 1st, 1931, and was buried on top of a small hill overlooking Sugar Creek, one of her favorite spots. Soon others were buried here, and over the years a small country cemetery developed. But then progress reared its head around the turn of the last century, and Johnson County decided that a road needed to be built to connect Amity with other thoroughfares. This meant the grave had to be relocated. Nancy's grandson, Daniel G. Dottie, had a problem with that. Dottie went to the county and voiced his opposition. Nothing changed, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. When county workers arrived, they found Dottie sitting on his grandmother's grave with a loaded shotgun. Again, Dottie told the county that his grandmother would stay where she was. If they insisted on trying to move her grave, they'd have to deal with him. With that prospect, county workers agreed to let things rest where they were. A concrete slab was placed over the grave in 1912 to protect it. A historical marker was added in 1982, and Nancy became an anomaly. But 3 years ago, after numerous reports of accidents, something had to be done. In 2016, Nancy's grave was temporarily moved to widen the road. It was the perfect time for University of Indianapolis archaeologists to see just what was buried there. Amazingly, they discovered that residents had been driving past not only Nancy's grave, but also the remains of 6 others, a man, a woman, and 4 children. Was this the Barnett family? No one said for sure, but the state has now designated this small spot in the middle of the road a family cemetery. The Tree of the Dead. In Terre Haute, Indiana, there stands the most massively disfigured cemetery tree I've ever encountered. Though its genus is no longer identifiable, it stretches at odd angles as if reaching out in despair. It was a frigid January day. I'd been taking photos with my husband, and he waved me over to see his find. Over the years, I've seen hundreds of ominous cemetery trees, but none like this. This tree was surely waiting for the headless horseman to plunge through that opening with a rush of fetid air as he continued searching for his head. Stepping closer, I attempted to take a photo, but the tree was having none of it. My camera shut down immediately. There are several explanations for this common cemetery occurrence. The batteries are too cold, connections are corroded, post seals are damaged, or spirits are sapping energy attempting to manifest. Yeah, well. But after changing the batteries 2 more times, I had yet to get one picture. My husband thrust his camera into my hands, and I was able to get 2 photos before the batteries died. One shows the tree in all of its appalling facade with the twisted limbs reaching akimbo to the sky. And notice the limb with the dragon's head at the end? The second shot shows the opening in the middle of the tree, a bizarre heart shape, and the mishmash of tombstones scattered around the plot date to the late 1800s, but the names are indecipherable. Who's buried here? What happened to give the tree such an appearance? Could it be caused by a decades-old drought? Maybe arsenic used to embalm bodies back in the 19th century slowly leaching its way up into the tree? Or could it be something else? A visual reminder of how precariously close fact and fiction are entwined in the graveyard. Cemeteries hold a vast amount of secrets, most of which we may never know. But the genealogist's pursuit of answers means we'll never stop exploring and asking questions. And perhaps one day, those secrets taken to the grave may be revealed.
Attention, right, dress, front, right shoulder, arms, forward, march.
Hello, listeners. We've mustered in for another Military Minutes with Michael Strauss. Last month, we dug deeper into the records of the Selective Service System and the numbering on the draft registration cards. Now this month, our discussion is on an underused genealogy treasure of women's registration cards on the home front from 1917 and 1918 during World War I. Now the Council of National Defense, which created these cards, was formed by an act of Congress as part of the Army Appropriation Act in August 1916. Now their leadership consisted of the Secretaries of War, Navy, Interior, Agriculture, Commerce, and the Labor Departments, along with an advisory commission that was later appointed by President Wilson in October 1916. Now their purpose was to come together and coordinate the industries and resources of the United States for national security and for our country to be prepared for war, which we believed was inevitable. Now later, in April 1917, a few short weeks after the United States entered World War I, the Women's Committee of the Council for National Defense, under the National Council, was created with suffragette Anna Howard Shaw appointed their chairman. They were organized into separate divisions and chapters in every state, and included African American groups. After being formed, these volunteer women were required to fill out registration cards all across the United States asking for personal information, their background education, their employment history, and their work skills that would be valuable to the war effort. These cards not only offer genealogy details, but they give a unique look into the social history of women during the early 20th century as women moved yet one step closer to national suffrage. You can see one of the examples in the show notes of one of the registration cards. Now, several collections from different states are available online to research. One of the largest online databases comes from the Grand Rapids Public Library in Michigan. Their database consists of 22,000 plus individual registration cards that are all searchable by name, address, age, and occupation. These records cover the Michigan Division of Grand Rapids for the Women's Committee for the Council of National Defense. Other states have partial collections, including Arkansas, Iowa, and Indiana that can be searched online. Now, if the geographic area of the United States you're interested in isn't online, consider looking at state archives, state libraries, museums, and other historical societies and websites by searching in card catalogs using finding aids as the best way to locate these potential collections, as most of them have never been turned over to the national government. Besides the registration cards, the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, Archives 2 I'm referring to, as part of Record Group 62, which is the Council for National Defense, has general correspondence, weekly reports of statewide division activities, and the minutes for their meetings. The minutes are digitized on the National Archives website. Join me next month when we will again revisit one of our early topics on the compiled military service records. Our initial discussion broke down what and where these records were and what they covered and where to find the originals. Over the next couple of months, we will discuss different record sets, all associated with these records that are not included with the original files in the National Archives, that all must be searched separately. These include unfiled papers, medical cards, record of events, bookmark notations, caption cards, and the Ainsworth lists. Until next time.
Have you visited backblaze.com/Lisa yet? If you don't have cloud backup for your computer yet, everything on it is vulnerable to loss. Your pictures, your master genealogy database, files for work, the everyday business of your household. Losing all of that at once is as devastating as it sounds. That's why I did my homework and I found a cloud-based backup service provider. I chose Backblaze. It runs in the background 24/7, automatically saving copies of everything. Backblaze is so easy to use. I love their free app that allows me to access all my files if I need to from my smartphone or my tablet. Most importantly, the service is totally affordable for real people. So don't wait to ensure that all your files are safe. Do it now. Back them up like I do with Backblaze. Head over to backblaze.com/Lisa. Check it out for yourself. You could even do a free trial. That's backblaze.com/Lisa. This gem is called Let Me Call You Sweetheart. Sydney Orton fell in love with family history and started her research when she was about 11 years old. She's now 19 years old and even more passionate about genealogy. She's a freshman at Brigham Young University and she's studying advertising. Well, I discovered Sydney one day on social media where I saw a short video that she had posted with her sister. Well, it turns out that she had entered this video in this year's RootsTech Film Festival. Now, while the video didn't win an award, it won my heart because it features an audio recording from long ago that her grandpa made for her grandma. Now, because the audio from the film is so wonderful, just on its own, I asked Sydney if I could share it with you here on the show, and she graciously agreed. But before I play it for you, let me read to you what Sydney wrote as a preface to what you're about to hear. She says, "My grandpa and my grandma were in love when he left to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Australia. They were not engaged, but they planned to marry each other when he came back after 2 years. During the months he was gone, Grandpa sent Grandma gifts like a boomerang, a stuffed koala bear toy, and photo prints. For her birthday, Grandpa sent her audio tapes of him singing love songs while he played the guitar. For my 14th birthday, Grandpa gave me his guitar. It was about 50 years old, and I loved it. Grandpa passed away suddenly in the fall of 2017. A few days after, my dad was going through Grandpa's computer and found the audio. Grandpa must have converted it a few years ago. It was such a special experience to hear him sing. A few months later, Grandma decided to move, and she hosted a garage sale. My Uncle Austin looked through the items and pulled out an unmarked, dinged-up videotape. He felt like he should take it home, so he did. He searched for a VCR player for hours before he found one, and then he discovered what the tape contained. Footage of my grandparents and their family. No one knew it existed. The video recorder belonged to my great-grandparents, but they let their son and daughter-in-law borrow it occasionally. It was colorized, but silent, and it was beautiful. Grandma and Grandpa had a special kind of love. The kind you see in classic 1930s Hollywood movies. The kind where you never doubt that they were meant for each other. My uncle showed the rest of our family the footage during our last reunion. My aunts and uncles saw video of themselves as children for the first time. I saw my grandparents raise my dad. It was such a gift. For Christmas, I wanted to give my grandma something special, so I worked with my sister to put together a video compiling the audio from Grandpa's mission and the silent footage my uncle found. My sister learned to play the chords of "Let Me Call You Sweetheart" on Grandpa's guitar because I couldn't figure it out. She has a knack for just hearing music and playing it right. Together, we sang a duet with the recording from Grandpa. I mixed together the audio and edited the footage into one whole video. The video was not completed in time for Christmas, but I did finish it in time to enter the RootsTech Film Fest, where it made it to the semi-finalist round. The video was imperfect, but it was just right for its purpose. And that purpose was to make my grandma smile. I was away at college when I wanted my grandma to see it, so Mom went over to Grandma's house and FaceTimed me while they watched it. Grandma said to me after, "I was at dinner tonight and someone was playing the piano. I listened to the music and I tried to remember what it was like to dance with Steve." Together, we shared tears and laughter as we remembered my grandpa, Steve Orton. I'm forever grateful for the technology that made the video possible. So let's take a listen to Sydney and her sister and their grandpa.
Hi, I'm Sydney. And I'm Savannah. And this is our grandpa's guitar. It's 58 years old. Thanks to the power of technology, my sister and I get to sing a duet with our grandpa. We dedicate this song to his sweetheart, our grandma, Elva.
And so, my darling, it's your birthday. I didn't have much trouble finding out what to say to you on your birthday. That's just happy birthday. But what to give you was a different matter. I just didn't know. Didn't think you wanted another boomerang, another koala bear. And so, I've decided to make this tape for your birthday. I don't know if what I'm going to do on this tape will be the best for a birthday present, but we'll see. Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love me too. Keep that love light glistening in your eyes, so true. Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love me too. Keep that love light glistening in your eyes, so true. Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you.
We love you, Grandma.
Thanks for joining me for Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 228. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I certainly did. I love putting this podcast together for you. And of course, if you want to learn more about anything that you heard today, head to the show notes. Now, if you're in the Genealogy Gems app, and yes, we do have a podcast app in the App Store, you will find the show notes in the details section for this particular episode. And really, the show notes is just where we summarize all the information, write things up, give you the background on our guests, and most importantly, links to additional information and articles that I reference here on the show. You'll also find the show notes at genealogygems.com. Just go to the main menu, and under the podcast, you're going to go to Genealogy Gems Podcast, and this one will be up near the top. Of course, that depends when you are listening to this episode, but you're looking for episode number 228. Now, of course, make sure you're following me on Instagram. Are you on Instagram? I don't know. I really enjoy it. There's a lot of genealogists over there. And over on my Instagram feed, you're going to see me driving, well, not driving, behind the wheel of a self-driving car. How's that for high tech? Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, I was speaking in Sacramento, and of course, we used to live out in Northern California, and so some friends of ours came over, Steve and Susan Dring. They have a Tesla, and while this is not totally a self-driving car, as far as some of the ones that Google has been out there test driving, the Tesla does allow you to kind of put it into cruise control on steroids. That's the only way I can explain it. You're just going to have to see my hands-free driving on Instagram. What in the world would our ancestors have thought of that? Maybe we'll have to talk about that next time we get together here. Thank you so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.